Hey everyone, I hope you all enjoyed Fear Agent Volume 1 last week. We ended on that cliffhanger where Heath Huston got stomped by Gentoo, the Tetaldian robot, and he basically seems dead. How will he survive this and get out of it? Well, let's dive into Volume 2 now and pick up where we left off and see what happens to Heath Huston.
Fear Agent Volume 2, My War, written by Rick Remender, art by Jerome Opeña. Issue 5, My War, Chapter 1. Picking up immediately where last volume ended, Heath Huston got stomped on by Gentoo the Tetaldian, and Gentoo picked up Heath's body and threw him out of the tower that they were in. Heath was still alive, but he was bleeding a lot and he would surely die soon. Heath fell from the tower from up above and into the lake or ocean down below. Heath, before he hit the water, triggered his helmet to go up so he could breathe underwater. Despite this, though, Heath is too weak to swim away from this situation, and he is sinking deeper and deeper into the water, and he is bleeding profusely. Heath, believing that this is the end for him, takes out a picture of his wife from his pocket. He holds it and he kisses it. He says to the picture, "I'm so sorry, baby." Heath then passes out from the blood loss. A whole bunch of jelly brains that live in the ocean come across Heath's body there in the water. We first saw a jelly brain in issue 1. It was on the planet Prazturga in the future before Heath time traveled, and Heath ended up killing that jelly brain. Well, these jelly brains are unaware of those events. These jelly brains decide to retrieve Heath and bring him to their underwater city. In their underwater city, they do all sorts of science bullshit to Heath, scanning him, dissecting him, poking and prodding at his brain. They then attempt to try and clone him. While all of this is going on, we return to Mera Esperanza and the ape-like Astorgians. The Astorgians' leader, named Jens, and Mera are talking. The Astorgians have helped recover parts of Heath's crashed spacecraft, and they are helping Mera rebuild it. Back over to Heath and the jelly brains. Heath eventually wakes up in a cloned body of himself. The jelly brain, seeing Heath awake, tells him, "Excellent, you're awake. There were a multitude of radical variables to account for. We were unsure if the process was a success." Heath is really confused by what is going on. The jelly brain tells Heath, "You mustn't panic. The cloned body must not endure stress." Heath starts noticing he is not in his original body. His Fear Agent core tattoo is no longer there either. The jelly brain explains, "As I said, we cloned you a new body as your old one was horribly damaged. You were lifeless when the scouts discovered you. We constructed hundreds of failed bodies. It appears we finally perfected it." Heath is then brought to the king of the jelly brains. The king asks if Heath is happy with his new body. Heath answers, "I haven't really had a chance to take it for a test drive, but pretty excited about the new liver." The king asks, "We have many questions. You are not of this world, that much is clear to us. From where do you originate? How did you arrive here?" Heath is dismissive with his answers. He says, "I'm just a spaceman from the future, come back to put all wrongs right. The whys and what fors are better left for another time. Anywho, I need to get back up topside pronto." The jelly brain takes offense to this. They saved his life, and he won't even answer their questions? Heath answers disrespectfully, "I'd be better served if you'd shut your goddamn brain hole and listen up. Right now, up topside, I've got friends getting their asses handed to them by a militia of robots that you left unchecked." The Jelly Brain King says that he cares little about the Astorgians' plight on the surface. Heath then reveals to the Jelly Brain King that he is from the future, and where he is from, the Jelly Brain race is nothing but a bunch of intergalactic scavengers without a pot to piss in. The king gets angry by this comment. Back over to Mera and the Astorgians. Ket, the Astorgian traitor and leader of the militia squad, returns to the rest of the Astorgians. Ket claims that Heath ran like a coward once the Tetaldian robots appeared, and he was most likely killed, no doubt. The Astorgians help Ket get back to their camp. Mara, though, she has a hard time believing in this story. Jens, the Astorgian leader, and Ket are talking privately. Jens questions Ket's story. He says, "This attack on Gentoo, it was the aliens' idea," referring to Heath. "If his story is true, the Tetaldians will annihilate his homeworld and all he cares for. Therefore, it makes no sense for him to flee." Ket to this says, "Well, obviously he was sent to us from Gentoo. That woman is clearly a spy as well." Jens does not believe that to be true. He is perhaps starting to grow a little suspicious of Ket. But no matter, as Ket stabs Jens right there and then, killing him. Ket then radios into Gentoo and the Tetaldians and tells them all is ready. Mara, she then walks in and sees Ket killing Jens, and she screams out, "You bastard!" At that moment, the Tetaldian forces hone in on their location. An army of Astorgians and Tetaldians robots charge at each other in battle. Ket, talking to Gentoo, tells him about Mara and Heath's spaceship, which has been repaired. Ket tells Gentoo, "The space vessel you seek, claim it now." Mara realizes that if the Tetaldians get their hands on Annie and the technology for space travel, well, the implications will be terrible. So Mara, she runs to the spaceship and she closes the door. It is still not ready enough to blast off yet. Mara tells Annie to trigger the ship's self-destruct if they get in here. Annie says she will. Back over to Heath and the Jellybrain King. The two of them argue. The Jellybrain King refuses to interfere with the battle between the Tetaldians and the Astorgians. Heath tells him, though, that the Tetaldians grow like a universal cancer, spreading from world to world. The king still doesn't believe Heath's story. But the Jellybrain King, he uses his powers to read Heath's memories, and sure enough, the king confirms Heath's story. The king says, you are from the future, one in which you murder me. So, that Jellybrain King is the very same one that Heath murdered in Issue 1. Issue 6, My War, Chapter 2. The Jellybrain King can't believe this future is possible. How can this filthy primate murder him? The Jellybrain Queen then floats into the room and she tells her husband, "Cease the posturing. Is self-preservation not enough motivation to heed this forewarning? He is from the future, one where you are a nomad set to the dismal chore of pilfering resources from other civilizations." The king, he is not happy to accept this future fate of his people. He still believes, though, it is not worth interfering as there is no hope in changing the future. It has happened, and it will happen. Heath, he still argues against this. On the surface, the Tetaldians and their robot army are killing the Astorgians. Mara, she is still in that spaceship, and Annie, the ship's AI, says to her that the system is still glitching, but the flight systems are operational now, and they might have enough hyperfuel for one last time jolt. Mara is not sure what to do. She decides that they will wait a while longer for Heath to potentially return. No one has breached the ship yet, and they still have some time. Mara says to Annie, "I'd like to envision our resident cowboy with the balls of iron returning at the very last minute to turn the tide." The battle is still raging on. The Astorgians are fighting the Tetaldians. Ket, he is even in the mix, and he is fighting some of his own people, the Astorgians, as Ket has been promised a robot Tetaldian body for himself after all of this is over. As the fighting is going, the tide of battle finally changes as the Jellybrains, swayed by Heath's talk of a dire future for them, decide to intervene. The Jellybrains are flying in the air above the battlefield, and they announce to the creatures below, "Please accept this as our official declaration of war." Heath, now fighting alongside the Jellybrains, managed to easily win the battle, and they are taking down the Tetaldians. The jelly brains are zapping some and Heath is stabbing through the brains of others. The jelly brains continue their battling, but it is only a matter of time before they will definitely reign victorious. So he eventually peels away from the fighting, and he makes his way to the spaceship, and he finds Mara. The two of them hug. He then also sees that his ship is repaired, and his AI, Annie, is back in operating condition. Heath tells Annie, "Annie, my girl, we need to get the hell out of Dodge, pronto-like." Mara tells Heath that she scavenged enough hyperfuel for one time jump. The two of them then buckle into their seatbelts and prepare to time jump out of here. Annie tells Heath that the warp engines won't engage. It appears a power cord has been severed. Heath will have to go outside and manually reconnect it. Annie warns Heath, "The cable is grounded, so you won't be injured, but you'll need to equip your helmet with oxygen." Heath, once the connection is live, if it's disconnected, the resulting explosion will carry 500 megatons. Heath replies, "Gotcha. Let go of the cables, blow self up." Soon as you see I've made the connection, you rifle on that time jump. Heath, he hangs on the outside of the ship. He manually grabs those cables and sticks the connectors together. Heath needs to stay here, keeping those cables connected in place until the time jump happens. Annie starts counting down. She tells them, "We are live, countdown in minus 30 seconds. At that point, though, the traitor, Ket, manages to get his way onto the ship. Annie warns Mara of an intruder. Ket, with a knife, tells Mara, You did this! You dared involve them!" referring to the jelly brains. Mara, she tries to get away, but Ket grabs her and stabs her and seems to kill her and drag her outside of the ship. He is still holding those cables together, and he sees down below that Ket is dragging Mara's body away. He screams for Annie to stop the time jump. Maybe he can still save Mara, but it is too late. Annie has already triggered the time jump to go. And boom, the time jump happens. He is brought back again to the current day, 20,000 years from where he just was. He is on the same planet he just was, but it is very different now. The Cataldians are no longer here, and there are many jelly brains flying in the sky, still thriving, and the Astorgians are also still there. Heath, as he's looking around, he is found by some Astorgians. The Astorgians refer to Heath as a constable. Heath is confused by this. Heath asks them, "Where are the Cataldians?" The Astorgian tells Heath that the Cataldians were wiped out eons ago. Some other human constables on this planet arrive on flying hover bikes. They ask Heath, "Looks like we got a cell deconstruction underway. What's your ID?" Heath says he doesn't have time for this, and he walks off. The constable tells Heath, "You take another step and I'll be forced to act." Heath tells them, "Then act." The constable falls off their bike, and their helmet also falls off. And that constable is revealed to be a clone of Mara. Heath, surprised, asks, "Mara?" And clone Mara says, "That's right, buddy. I'm a clone of Mara Esperanza, and you're a clone of Heath Huston, and we all serve as the law around these parts. You really are a degen job, eh?" Another constable comments, "He's a clone, all right. A low gen, too." So it seems like in this alternate future here, Heath and Mara have been cloned and are used as police officers on the Jellybrain/Astorgian planet. The constable, talking to Heath, tells him, "Listen, pal, we're not going to hurt you. We need to get you to a cell depository and see what we can't do about this bad batch you got." Heath then gets angry. He says, "Son of a bitch, those Jellybrain assholes made more clones of me and Mara?" Then something even more unexpected happens while they are all arguing. Several large machines the size of cities start flying in the sky. The power that these flying cities are giving off is almost impossible seeming. Heath, he runs and returns to his spaceship, and he tells Annie to get them out of here. Annie informs Heath that they have no fuel now, though. The Astorgians and Jellybrains start flying in the air, heading toward these flying cities. They are trying to investigate what they are. Before they can do anything, though, the flying cities in the sky, they blast down on the planet below. Some great light, and they literally erase the cities from existence. Heath, watching from the window of his spaceship, comments, "Mother of God, that entire city, it's just gone." Heath, he begs Annie, "Annie, you gotta have something left or we're all gonna die." Small vehicle then descends from the flying city thing, and it heads over to Heath's spaceship. A voice from the vehicle tells Heath, "Anomaly, you are to disengage all weapon systems and prepare to be docked. You are under arrest for the crime of time travel." Issue 7, My War, Chapter 3. The organization that was controlling those flying city things are known as the Timekeepers. Their job is to fix aberrations in the timeline. When Heath went back in time and got the Jellybrains to interfere in the war between the Astorgians and the Tataldians, the timeline was dramatically altered, and many planets were affected. The Timekeepers, using their ginormous flying machines, fashioned bubbles of non-existence and literally consumed time and space, and they simply erased everything and put everything back the way it was. The Timekeepers then towed Heath's spaceship off-planet, and they arrested him. Heath in his ship is talking to Annie, trying to figure out what is happening. He still can't believe it. Heath comments, "These maniacs are erasing everything? I just fixed the goddamn place." The Timekeeper then bring Heath to their space base, and they make Heath exit his vehicle, and at gunpoint they make him come with them. They bring Heath to a space courtroom where he will be on trial for his time travel crimes. As Heath enters the courtroom, he sees a main judge in the middle of the room, and then what seems like a panel of 6 other aliens representing different species beside that judge. Heath's court-appointed lawyer, named Trolley Mipipqueer, introduces himself to Heath and says he will be defending him. The main judge announces to the court, "The Keepers will begin the 13th and final trial of Heath Huston for crimes against the known universe. Order, order! Let this court come into session. Before the tribunal of eternal keepers sits the final Heath Huston, whom we will be meeting for the crime of reality alteration and time travel." Heath is confused about this whole situation. He asks, "Timekeepers? What the hell jurisdiction do you monkey clowns have? I've never even heard of you." The alien prosecutor stands up and lays out the case against Heath. At 13 Quelnez Nova time, the break of day, we monitored a concentrated continuum upsurge, ending in the deletion of the Tataldian race from the universal stage. An upheaval so violent it caused more anomalies than could be recorded, the resulting disruptions nearly ending in the deletion of the principal dimension, nearly resulting in the end of our reality. Keepers, world menders, were deployed to the site of the disturbance, the planet Tatal, where they proceeded to expunge the quandary and reset all distorted events. Heath, hearing this, asks, "Wait, did I just hear you ignorant pieces of shit tell me you put the Tataldian Empire back together?" Heath is told to behave, but he argues that the universe is a better place without the Tataldians in it. The judge tells him, regardless of the morality you apply to the event, whether it be the eradication of a new disease or that of a race that will one day conquer your world, disrupting the natural state of history can result in things your Class C mind can't even comprehend. You risk us all in your tampering. The prosecutor then continues his case, saying, "As the court is aware, we managed to apprehend the accused from all divergent realities at the moment of his return to the Prime, in order to prevent reoccurring anomalies. All have been executed. Before us sits the Prime, who shall stand before this court accountable for his crimes. The prosecutor we see is standing in front of many other versions of Heath Huston from these other realities and times. Heath, seeing all these dead versions of himself, says, "What the hell?" Heath's lawyer, Trolley, says to the court, "Your Honor, can we agree that showing the anomaly's executions to this fatigued and mentally inferior defendant is perhaps beyond cruel and unusual?" Heath is now angry that his lawyer is calling him mentally inferior. Heath tells the court that he didn't make a time jump on his own accord. The Dressites sabotaged his ship. They are aiming to annihilate Earth. It's all a setup, clearly. They knew exactly where and when to send me. They must have reckoned I'd step up to the plate and stomp ass on those tin pot Cataldian shit cans. The judges do not believe Heath's accusations about the Dressites. One of the aliens that looks like a giant grasshopper says that Heath's accusations about the Dressites are the ramblings of a lunatic. He says, "The United Systems has been monitoring all borders. Had there been a breach, we would have heard. There is peace in the universe. No Dressites have entered your world system since the treaties." Heath, though, he stands by his accusations. The prosecutor then calls in their first and only witness, Mara Esperanza. Heath is surprised that Mara is still alive. And this Mara seems like the real thing, not just another weird clone. The prosecutor then explains how Mara is here before them. Mara here would have died, but they, the timekeepers, time-walked to retrieve her moments before her imminent murder in the past. So this is the same Mara that Heath went on an adventure with recently. Mara in the courtroom here is hooked up to a high-tech truth-telling machine. The prosecutor tells Mara, "Miss Esperanza, be advised that the device to which you've just been connected will make it impossible for you to deceive this court. Any attempt to do so will result in an intensely unpleasant electric charge. Are we clear?" Mara answers yes. The prosecutor asks, "Did Mr. Huston knowingly take it upon himself to change the history of the universe by attempting to eradicate the Cataldian Empire as it began?" Mara answers yes. Prosecutor then asks, "And what were your feelings about the mission and Mr. Huston?" Mara answers, "As a victim of the attacks on Earth, I was a willing accomplice in the objective. As for Heath, I despise so much about him, but I want to have wild hot monkey sex with him." Mara, hooked up to the truth-telling machine, can't help but tell the truth. Heath, hearing this, sits back in his chair in the courtroom and exclaims, "I knew it!" The judge has had it. He says enough as he slams down his gavel and he tells Heath, "You are to be confined within our penitentiary for life. It is the court's opinion that if set free, these two would only attempt this folly all over again." Heath, he was then sent to an alien prison. And then we jump ahead 3 weeks, and we see Heath is in this alien prison cell. He is sitting between two other weird alien prisoners. One of them is a green gastropod that exhales a garbage bag every 34 seconds, it seems like. And on the other side of him is this lobster guy. The lobster guy is wearing some sort of green patch on him. Heath wonders, what is this patch? Heath suspects maybe it's some kind of drug. It seems to give the lobster guy a pleasant disposition and keeps him detached from their present circumstances in a chemically induced solitude. After a while, Heath decides, you know what? He wants to try that patch out on himself. Surely the strung-out lobster guy would love to share. Heath, he picks off the patch on the lobster guy's arm, and the lobster guy does not seem like he wants to share it. The lobster guy grows insanely angry and is foaming from the mouth. The lobster guy slams Heath against the cell wall and stands up. And Heath on the ground says to the lobster guy, "See, I figured you and me could share a drink like a pair of old friends." The lobster guy still has that crazed, insane look in its eyes. Heath swipes the lobster guy's leg, and lobster guy falls to the ground. Heath, he then feeds down a strong blow on the lobster guy's head, followed by 3 or 4 more intense blows. The lobster guy stays down, and Heath, he grabs that green patch he wanted to try out. Eventually, some prison guards come by and they haul Heath away to solitary confinement. Heath, he doesn't care much about that though. When he gets into solitary, Heath, he finally puts that green patch on his arm. He has no idea what this drug will do to him, but at this point, it doesn't matter. The green patch makes Heath super high. He starts drooling, and all in all, he's feeling pretty relaxed, happy, and numb. 6 weeks later, the judge from earlier is being escorted to Heath's private solitary cell. The guards tell the judge he won't take meals. We were forced on a few occasions to inject nutrients into him. And at some point, he got his hands on a Clarion patch. We were told by Doc Dwyer removing it was ill-advised. When they opened Heath's cell door, Heath is scrawny, he has a beard now, and the drug patch on his arm has messed him up pretty good. The main judge tells Heath, Mr. Huston, due to recent events, we have changed our verdict. You are free as of this moment. We allow you, even implore you, to return to Earth. Now, why did this judge decide to release Heath now? Well, we will not really find out the answers on that yet. Heath asks that judge, why the change of heart? And the judge just answers, to not question his orders. Heath, he then vomits all over the judge and smiles. Heath is brought to Mara and his spaceship. Mara helps Heath aboard. Heath is a mess due to the Clarion drug patch. Mara attempts to remove it, but Heath snaps at her when she tries. Mara tells Annie, the ship AI, to get them out of here. The spaceship takes off with Mara and Heath in it, and they have finally left the Timekeeper's base. Annie, she analyzed that patch on Heath's arm, and she says, Heath, I've run a diagnostic on the contents of the patch. The results are alarming. It's Clarion. Clarion is the most addictive known narcotic. There is a 0 success rate from recovery. Dear God, Heath, you'll likely never break its addiction. Eventually, Mara restrains Heath on a cot in the ship, and Mara forcibly removes the patch from Heath's arm, and then she tends to him. While all of this is happening, the ship's AI, Annie, is piloting the spaceship home towards Earth. Elsewhere, we see some Dressite aliens are following along in their ship. The Dressites talking to one another say, Heath Huston will enter Earth's system boundary in 5 solar days. The leader of the Dressites there replies, follow close behind, remain undetected. We will trail him in, and using his system pass, Earth will be ours. Glory be to the Dressite Empire! Issue 8, My War, Chapter 4. We have a flashback now to the Huston family ranch in Texas, roughly 10 years ago. Heath Huston is there with his wife, Charlotte Huston, his son, Kent Huston, as well as his father, Chuck Huston. All is great and peaceful, it seems. Chuck does reveal to Charlotte and Heath, though, that he has cancer, and he does not want to be poisoned with radiation. Chuck is annoyed by this about Chuck not getting treatment. She tells him it's his decision, but it's selfish. He's got family here that loves him and needs him, and he should try and fight it. Charlotte, she then goes inside the house. Kent, Heath's son, gets his shirt stuck in some barbed wire fencing surrounding the ranch. Chuck, he gets up and he goes to help his grandson Kent out. As he does, what appears to be a spaceship is flying off in the distance in the sky, and the spaceship dropped a bomb, and Chuck and Kent, they died in the enormous blast as they were in the explosion radius. Heath and his wife Charlotte were spared, though. This was the beginning of the invasion of Earth, a conflict that would come to be known as the Anubis conflict. There were 3 alien races on Earth during the time of this conflict: the Tetaldians, the Dressites, and the Zeren. Back to the current day now. Heath, he wakes up screaming, "No!" He was dreaming about that horrible day 10 years ago, when his father and his son died. Mara tries to comfort Heath about his dream. She too has bad dreams about the time when Earth was invaded. Mara, she starts shaving Heath as he has a gnarly beard, and as she is doing that, she talks about how she survived the attacks on Earth. She says that her family was rounded up by the Zarin as cattle and taken off-world. Once Heath is clean-shaven, he apologizes to Mara for letting her die back there when they traveled back in time, but he is so happy she is alive now. Mara then decides to be kind of forthcoming with Heath. She says, "That's maybe the first real thing you ever said to me. So in that spirit, I'm going to be candid here, forgoing the usual ritualistic formalities. I'm very turned on by it. I think we need to make out. Our lives have been complete shit since we met. Figure in the lack of human contact and things get unbearable. Mara, she wants to get laid. She feels it would do good for the both of them." Heath asks if she's serious. Mara says she is, but she wants Heath to cut off those hippie curls first. So, one haircut later, Heath and Mara are making out. It's nice and tender, but Mara, she doesn't like that though. She says, okay, this thing is, too tender. It's not really how I imagine things going." Heath asks her, "Oh, well, how exactly did you see things going?" Mara, she punches Heath in the face, and Heath, he smiles and he licks the blood from his lip and he winks and says, "Oh, okay, I see." Mara, she wants it rough. The two of them, they get a little rough with each other and enjoy some steamy lovemaking. Hours later, Mara and Heath are both sleeping together in bed. Heath, he eventually wakes up and he sees what he thinks is a hallucination or something. He sees a vision of the future, and Mara is in that vision, and she's saying, "Heath, are you there? Scott's dead. Jesus, they're all dead. If you can hear this, please get me off this planet. Heath, this place is a death trap. If you come, do not land. Dear God, they're almost inside. It's too late. Get back, you soulless sons of bitches. Heath, I love you." And then that vision ends. Heath is not quite so sure what to make of this. This is perhaps a tease of future events or something. Real Mara then wakes up beside Heath. Heath tells her of his weird vision, but Mara thinks that maybe it was just a byproduct of Heath's detoxing from those drugs he was on for the past few weeks. Annie, the ship's AI, seeing that both Heath and Mara are now awake, tells them, "Finally! We've been hovering over Earth for nearly 20 minutes. Dear God, Heath, it's far more horrible than we feared. It's all gone. They've destroyed everything." Annie, she scans for human life on Earth and says, "There's nothing. Hundreds of thousands of feeders are on Earth and some dressites, but no human life." Heath, he thinks, surely there must be a margin of error with so many feeders down there. Heath asks Annie to take him down. Annie and Mara think this is a terrible idea, but Heath doesn't care. He wants to look around Earth. He tells them, "Get your ass dressed and get strapped in. Like it or not, we're going down." Issue 9, My War, Chapter 5. So with the dressites having brought the feeders down to Earth and infecting Earth with them, the Earth is now completely overrun with the creatures. Heath's ship lands in New Dallas, which has replaced Old Dallas after it was utterly devastated in the previous war. Heath says bye to Mara, who is staying on the ship. Mara sees no reason to risk her life helping Heath out on his mission. Heath, he did not even tell Mara or Annie what he was trying to find on Earth. But the truth is, he was looking for his wife, Charlotte. Heath, he gave Charlotte a locket with a tracking device in it, and Heath is searching for that locket, hoping it will lead him to his wife, as the tracking device inside of it is giving off a signal. While Heath is searching Earth, Mara stays in the ship, and she phones into the United Systems. When the communications open, Mara asks, "Where are you people? Earth has been completely infested." The United Systems, rather than have someone talk to Mara in person, instead feed her a pre-recorded message saying, "This is a pre-recorded response to Earth communications. Area United Systems outposts are under heavy attack. The U.S. hull on Tetran is gone. Cease evacuations to it. We are aware of your situation. Find cover and wait for..." Mara shuts off the message. Mara, talking to Annie, tells her to blast off. She does not want to stay here on Earth and die for Heath's shit, when Heath won't even tell her what he is looking for. Heath, he is exploring downtown New Dallas. Heath comments, "The entire human race devoured in less than half the time it takes for Earth to circle the sun." We see Heath as he is looking around, see some Dressite shock troopers. They recently have unloaded some defeaters from their trucks. Heath fights through some of the Dressite troops, and he eventually finds his way to the state capital. There are some feeders around, but they are low on their food supply, so a lot of the feeders are staying dormant. As Heath explores the state capital, one of the feeders does manage to get the jump on him and grab him. Heath figures sometimes the only way out is in. Heath, he gets swallowed by the feeder. The acid inside the feeder's stomach begins to scorch Heath's face. Heath, though, he manages to blast his way out from inside the feeder and kill it. Heath, he walks on. He's getting closer to the source of that tracking device. Eventually, he finds it. It was his mother's locket. He gave it to his wife, Charlotte. It was inside the false bottom of a jewelry box. Charlotte, she never took it off before as long as Heath knew her. Heath, he somehow convinced himself that she would still have it on, regardless of everything that happened between the two of them. Heath, because of this, assumes that Charlotte must be dead, too. Dead like his father and his son. Heath, he is eventually surrounded by Dressite soldiers and feeders. Heath, he figures he's a goner, but he is going to go out with a fight. But then, some missiles rain down from the sky, blasting away at some Dressites and some feeders. And then, walking over to Heath are 5 humans. Heath asks them, "Who the hell do you think you are?" The leader of the squad of humans that is around Heath answers, "We're the folks that just saved your ass. We're the fear agents." These people apparently are fear agents. Heath is confused by this, as far as he knew, he was the last one. Well, from left to right, these fear agents here are Scott, George, Keith, Betty, and the Russian Nicholas. Issue 10, My War, Chapter 6. Mara and Annie are still in the spaceship on Earth. Mara wanted Annie to get them out of here, but Annie demanded they stay a little while longer in case Heath returned to them. She says he fought his way out of worse. Heath, he is arguing with these new fear agents. As far as Heath knew, he was the last one. All the others died in the war fighting alongside him. He asks these new fear agents where they got their suits. Keith, the squad leader, ignores this question and starts giving out orders to his men. Keith, though, is insistent, wanting an answer. Keith tells Heath that he has been away for a long time and things have changed. Keith, in anger, says, "No shit. Apparently I've been gone just long enough for you and your band of charlatans to completely lose your friggin' minds. You ain't worth of speaking our name, yet here you stand with the unmitigated audacity to self-apply it. You ain't fear agents. They all died protecting the planet that fell on your watch." When Heath left Earth 10 years or so ago, Earth was still intact and in a better place. They all survived the war and Earth was rebuilding. But now it looks like Earth has fallen to shit again thanks to these Dressites and these feeders. And Heath, he blames these new fear agents for failing. Keith explains, "It wasn't our watch. Listen, a few months ago we were just normal people. Cops, firefighters, a chemist, and a chaplain. And now Now we're just doing what we can to save as many people as possible. I know how you feel at seeing the state of things. Trust me, it's not easy for any of us." At that moment, a feeder starts making its way over to them to attack. These new fear agents jump into action to fight it. They are zapping at it and firing upon it. Keith is flying in the air with a jetpack, and Betty pulls out some sort of fancy bomb the size of a baseball. She arms it. She tosses it to Nicholas. Nicholas has it in his hands. Keith in his jetpack flies down and picks Nicholas up and flies Nicholas up into the air. Once they are above the feeder, Nicholas pulls out some sort of laser gun and cuts a small hole into the feeder. Nicholas, he throws that baseball-sized bomb right inside the hole in the feeder, and then they all start retreating. Keith warns Heath, 10 seconds till the slug pack commences to liquefy. Jesus, Heath, 3 blocks is minimum safe distance. Heath, not really understanding, is just standing his ground. He asks, "Safe distance from what?" The bomb inside the feeder then goes off, and it liquefies the feeder, and the feeder's body pours down the street in a pool of gooey yellow liquid. And with that feeder is dead, and most of the threats in the immediate area are now gone. The new fear agents then go to talk to Heath and tell him, "We're heading back to the moon base where we managed to evacuate about 10,000 refugees." Heath tells them that he has his own ship here on Earth. He needs to go there first. Keith tells him that that ship has already been escorted to the moon base and is waiting for him there. So he catches a ride with these new fear agents up to their moon base where the rest of Earth has retreated to. Once they arrive on the moon, the new fear agents walk out and Heath is following behind them. A blonde woman is there waiting for them when they arrive. She says, "You made it. Welcome home." That blonde woman is Charlotte, Heath's wife, whom he hasn't seen in nearly a decade, whom he thought died recently when he found that tracking device and she wasn't near it. Heath, seeing his wife, lets out an enthusiastic, "Charlotte, thank Jesus, baby. I thought I lost you." Heath, he starts running into Charlotte's arms, and Charlotte says, "I was so worried about you down there." And Charlotte, though, she instead runs right into the arms of Keith, and she hugs and kisses him, as Keith is her new husband. And Heath is speechless. Mara, who was already escorted to the moon and saw this whole thing go down, says, "Ouch, I mean, wow. That is without a question the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen." Charlotte, who coldly doesn't even acknowledge Heath, says to her husband, "I can't believe he was down there rummaging around. What was going through his head? Thank you for saving him, Angel. I think it's just about the bravest old thing ever." Heath, hearing his ex-wife Charlotte say this, says, Whoa, excuse me, Angel? But I sure as spit didn't need his help. The only reason I went down there in the first place was to Charlotte asks bitterly, "To what? What exactly earned us the great honor of your presence in this dark hour, sugar?" The truth is that Heath was looking for her, but he doesn't want to admit that to Charlotte now. So instead, Heath lies, saying, "Forget it. It was nothing. I was just looking to collect a Dressite bounty." Charlotte is apparently now the president of what is left of Earth on the moon. She is the president of the rebellion. And she orders Scott, one of the other fear agents, to find Heath and his friend, Mara, a room. She then leaves. Now, why is Charlotte being so mean to Heath? They did once love each other very much. What happened to change this? Well, this is something we will get answers on next volume. Scott leads Heath and Mara to their room that they will be staying in while they are here on the moon base. Scott, he is very enthusiastic about meeting Heath, as Heath is a little bit of a legend for his exploits in the war. So as he is leading Heath to his room, Scott says, "Again, I can't express what an honor it was to battle the invaders with you today, Mr. Huston. Spirits have been so low recently that it behooves us to endeavor to remain cheerful when we can. The invaders, they began to arrive as the world was commemorating the 10th anniversary of the Anubis conflict. In fact, there occurred a number of controversies as to the historical accuracy of your role in the conflict. The debates polarized a great many people. They eventually arrive at the room that they will be staying at. Mara, she is actually a little bit upset with Heath, so she tells Scott, "Scott, you'll probably want to get Heath his own room so he can sink into a sea of fond memories of his beautiful ex-wife." Heath tells Mara, "Come on, Mara, it ain't like that." Mara, annoyed, says, "Really? What was that bounty hunting bullshit about? We both know what you were looking for down there. Just don't come looking for it here anymore." As Scott and Heath are alone, Scott smiles and asks Heath, "Trouble with the ladies, eh?" Scott, he leads Heath to Heath's old room, which has been left untouched. Scott explains, "Even with the facility as overcrowded as it is, everyone agreed to leave this wing as it was found, for historical reasons. You need anything else before I go?" Heath asks for some whiskey. Scott says he will look for some. As Scott leaves and some time goes by, eventually Heath gets a knock on his door. It is Charlotte, Heath's ex-wife. Charlotte, she wants to talk about things. Charlotte tells Heath, "It's all different now. I don't need a cowboy to ride in and save me. Look, I'm sorry. It's good to know you're all right. It really is. You should have contacted home. Let everyone know you were safe." Heath tells Charlotte, "Oh, Charlotte, I knew seeing you would tear my guts out bad. Till this second, I didn't know how bad, though." Heath, he tries to move in and kiss his wife, but Charlotte rejects him, pushes him off. She tells him don't. She is married now. What the hell was I thinking coming in here? Charlotte informs Heath that Annie's all fueled and fixed up, and Scott had her loaded with your favorite pastime. Charlotte, she's referring to Heath's alcohol consumption. Heath tells Charlotte as she is walking away, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. If that's some kind of comment on my drinking, I'll tell you what, that's a crutch I long left behind." At that exact moment, Scott walks in with a giant box filled with tons of alcohol that Heath requested. Scott tells Heath, "The supplies you asked for, Mr. Huston." Heath responds, "Oh, son of a bitch, just, goddamn, you couldn't have picked the worst time. Just put it on the dresser there." Charlotte tells Heath that if he wants to help out with Earth's cause now that he is here, come with her and she'll fill him in on humanity's circumstances. Heath, he grabs a beer and follows Charlotte. They start walking around the moon base. Charlotte explains that there are 20,000 Earth refugees here, enough of a gene pool to repopulate, but they are running low on supplies. They make trips down to Earth to collect water, but they need to find a new inhabitable world soon, or find a way to get rid of the feeders on Earth. Keith, he joins them, Charlotte's new husband, and even though Keith is with Charlotte now, he still treats Heath with a lot of respect. Keith tells Heath, "I was telling Charlotte that we could really use your help in enforcing the law around the base. The search for a new homeworld is taking longer than we anticipated, and there have been instances of, well, unrest within the population." Heath, he jokes, "Sounds like a lack of respect for the current leadership." Charlotte then has some of her fear agents explain some of their plans they have to get Earth out of this situation. So one of their plans is the feeder's home planet. They nicknamed it Shitberg. It has nothing but black ore and ice on it, but they theorize that maybe the planet will have a natural predator of the feeders. They can get a team together, go on the surface, they could find what that predator is and bring a few of them back to Earth in hopes that they would destroy the feeders. Heath, hearing this plan, replies sarcastically, "Genius! And then all you'd have is the next meanest critter." Heath, talking to one of the fear agent's soldiers there, says, "God help you, Lieutenant Manure for Brains, if you set foot on that death rock." Heath, he leaves and goes back to his room. He drinks, and then he goes to bed and sleeps. Meanwhile, we see Mara elsewhere. She is talking on a communicator to some Dressites. Mara apparently has made some sort of deal with them. The Dressite she is talking to tells Mara, "The Dressite Empire offers its gratitude for a job well done. Thanks to your gift of Houston's system pass, we are currently slipping past US forces with an entire battalion." Mara to this replies, "To be completely honest, I don't care what you do, as long as you deliver on your end of the deal." And with that cliffhanger, we end Volume 2. Next volume, we will finally learn the ins and outs of the initial invasion of Earth during the Anubis conflict. And then, in Volume 4, we will pick up the story from here on the moonbase and see where humanity goes forward.
Alright, that was Volume 2 of Fear Agent. So much stuff went down in this volume. So, the first 2 chapters are dealing with this war between the Astorgians and the Tataldians, and we see Heath Huston get revived by these jelly brains. They fix his body up. He convinces the jelly brains to help the Astorgians win the war, and they beat the Tataldians. And then Heath Huston time travels back to the present day. But then the time police come and they arrest him and send him to the time jury courtroom, whatnot. And then he goes into time prison. He's released from that. He travels with Mara to Earth. They hook up. They arrive on Earth. Heath looks around, sees some weird aliens. He gets saved by the new Fear agents. They take him to their moon base. And then Heath sees that his ex-wife Charlotte is still alive, and that is surprising. And we learn about the fate of humanity and their struggles for what they are going to do in the future. Whew! So yeah, that is what went down in this volume. So much stuff, all very compelling, I thought. And I thought this book was really fun. Now, my negatives are that it is getting a little confusing with all of the time travel stuff and the weird alien races and trying to figure all of that out. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still along for the ride, but I wish it was a little bit easier to follow sometimes. And I gotta be honest, this book does get a little bit more complicated in later volumes when they start explaining and giving the answers to things. But still, I thought it was really fun. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you are enjoying it. And I will be back next week with Volume 3. And Volume 3 is really exciting because we are going to see this Anubis conflict. We are going to see that initial invasion of Earth go down. So that is going to be pretty cool. I will see you all next week for that.